Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about leveraging strategic partnerships to implement innovative and impactful learning technologies. My name is Brett Rose with Delta Airlines.
Hello, I'm Julie Johnson from Conduent.
And Julie's going to kick us off with our session objectives and a couple of things, and then we're going to look at a couple of case studies. So, Julie?
Great, thank you, Brett. So our objectives today, we're going to talk about the importance of unpacking performance requirements for maximum impact. We're also going to take a look at the value of analyzing your technology toolkit, both its capabilities and its limitations, to make sure you're in alignment with your learning requirements. And finally, we're going to talk about Delta's approach for leveraging strategic partnerships to grow innovation within the organization. Brett, you want to come up and we'll talk a little bit about our first case study?
You bet. Thank you. So Delta has a pretty recognizable brand. You've probably seen a few of our aircraft kicking around in different places, ads on TV, fun safety videos on the internet, things like that. But beyond that brand in the marketplace, we have a very strong cultural tie to our brand internally as well. And that starts with our commitment to some primary documents that we have that really drive our culture. So the first is the way we fly. And that's really something that helps us understand how to work with each other, how we operate as a team. The second one is our flight plan. And that's really the what. What do we want to accomplish as a business? What are our goals? And this goes across the entire company, across the enterprise, and from the top to the bottom. Additionally, and probably most important, is the rules of the road. And that is the how we do business, how we work with each other, how we work with our customers. And so that really creates what we would consider that Delta difference. Many airlines offer similar services. Most of them fly similar aircraft, but that's really what we feel makes that cultural difference with Delta. And of course, that extends to what we do internally with our training and our learning initiatives. And so part of those brand attributes that we really focus on internally is being thoughtful, reliable, and innovative in everything that we do. And of course, it takes a huge number of people, systems, people with great skill sets and very specific skill sets in order to do that. So for that reason, we don't have a chief learning officer. We don't have a highly structured kind of top-down corporate learning approach and strategy. Instead, we have a federated model where each of these operational units have expertise, very focused, specific training programs that meet the needs of those operations. And then in the middle, as part of our corporate responsibility and the larger team that I'm a part of, we manage the Delta Learning Council. And that gives us an opportunity to bring together the leaders of all these different training organizations and work on specific training initiatives and strategy, manage tool sets and access to those things and some things like that. So it really does give us some additional reach into the business since we are not highly centralized. And our first case study we're going to talk about is with our TechOps group. They are really technicians responsible for the maintenance and safety of our aircraft, and that extends to not only the business need for that and keeping passengers safe, but also our employees. And so they have a huge initiative across the company, but especially in this area, to improve safety, keep people safe as they're doing their jobs, as well as passengers. Now, with TechOps, it's a fairly physical job. We've got a very broad, very diverse workforce, and so they've implemented a number of initiatives around back safety and ergonomics, teaching basic principles to help you be stronger, avoid being injured on the job. And so as part of this, some e-learning was developed, training was put together so that they could understand some of these core concepts. And the initial training was built a couple of years ago, and of course, over time, things change and we needed to do some maintenance on it. And as we did that, we started looking at some of the additional requirements that may come up. We didn't want this to be a simple punch list. We wanted to think about where can we add value and make this a better product. And of course, in partnership with Conduent, they had to develop the original course. We wanted to work with them and do the maintenance. But as we both got together and started looking at this, we identified some additional requirements. We wanted to reduce the time and the cost for the maintenance, because that would be an issue. We also wanted to improve the instructional quality in the context of what was going on in the course. And beyond that, we also needed to improve the technical delivery. We have some fairly narrow pipes out to some of our outstations, so bandwidth and things like that were often an issue. And then, of course, we also needed to update the content where it was necessary. Now, along with that comes some challenges. Of course, we wanted to get the things done, but time and maintenance on video-based learning is extremely expensive and time-consuming. On top of that, the team that originally put this together, they did a great job, shot a bunch of video out in hangars and on the job sites. That team wasn't available. They weren't even an official learning team. They were based out in Salt Lake City in one of our maintenance facilities. And trying to get access and the time to do that was just really prohibitive. On top of that, we wanted to try to improve the visual quality. The videos they put together were useful, but these were guys that had just kind of acquired some equipment, wanted to do this. They took a great first step, but we thought, we have an opportunity here to make the visuals even better, really make them more clear when we're talking about the ergonomic moves that they were trying to teach. And additionally, while using video is a great delivery method for certain things, it comes with a high price tag on the bandwidth side. So that's really one of the other things that we wanted to improve, was how this got out to some of those other places. So our solution was then to create a video or a course. Let me run this little video clip here that will show you some of the pieces of it. That had a new interface. It was much easier to work through. And we used a series of still images instead of video that were threaded together with a narrative describing each rule, and it created a simpler, cleaner interface, and also allowed for interactions that were still highly illustrative, but they had more flexibility. The user had a more personalized experience since they could kind of navigate around wherever they needed to. So in this case, they could step into the pieces of the step one, keep head level while lifting, talk about their power posture, understand those pieces, keeping your head level, even some additional information here about the structure of the back and what that power posture really means. They could replay it where they needed to, see how that worked. And then they could move on to the other steps. And then they could also kind of do a put it all together piece where they could really see what all those steps mean. And then you can see across the bottom of the screen there were additional areas where they could jump into the specific information about each of those rules. Now this may have seemed like kind of a lower tech option, but it also gave us an opportunity to really improve the consistency, get some really good high quality images in there. Even in this case, for a knowledge check question rather than just a multiple choice, we can give them a scenario, they can get some text feedback, but in addition to that, we can then pull back those images and illustrations from the video itself to reinforce those concepts of what to do or what not to do, as the case may be. And with this, we also ended up with a much quicker production time, much less logistical nightmares to scheduling and that sort of thing. And we're also able to include a stretch and flex reminder. So this is something that they would do as a team every morning. And this was a good initial introduction to it, but they could always go back to it. If somebody said, hey, you know what, tomorrow when we do stretch and flex, I want you to lead it, they could go in there and take a look at it and get a reminder of what all those moves were, make sure they understood it before they were ready to lead that. And so it just gave them a better user experience, better control in general. And so as a result, as I mentioned, you get more flexibility and consistency across the product. We ended up with a much better bandwidth profile. Instead of pushing all those videos, we just had some little animations and a lot of still images and text that conveyed the information. And that resulted in a lot of time and cost savings on the maintenance itself, beyond getting the content updated as we needed to. All right, and we're going to go on to our next case study now on our Spotlight video series. Julie?
Thank you, Brett.
You bet.
So Brett just shared some information on a highly effective program that we developed that had more of a low-tech solution. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about our Spotlight video series program, which was a little bit more of a high-tech engagement to solve some real business needs for Delta. As a little background, Delta has new hires that must be introduced to revenue management as a key business driver for an airline. And it was important to emphasize for employees that not only are profitability metrics important, but that their ability to drive profitability is critical. And therefore, it brings us full circle to the fact that if you're going to drive profitability as a key part of your responsibility, you have to understand what the drivers are for profitability within the airline industry. Another key understanding in terms of this particular course was that it was regularly delivered in person by a revenue management expert as a part of an onboarding process. So that would entail about 60 to 90 minutes of time to cover this key, technically challenging in some cases, but highly complex content in person every time there was a new hire event. Now, some of the requirements for moving forward and assessing our go-forward plan for this content was really the need to reduce the footprint for the course. And that's more than what we normally look at, but when you're unpacking the requirements, it was critical for us to understand that not only are we looking at the learning needs as a requirement, but also the footprint for training. And in addition, we also understood that in unpacking the requirements, we also had to understand the accessibility of the content. And when we looked at that, we said what we also wanted to make sure that this non-technical audience who was participating in this training and who needed this content were able to have it be accessible and digestible for themselves. Challenges. We have a solution, we know what we need to do, but yet we have content that is not necessarily fun, but is necessary and is very complex. And we had a diverse audience of new hires who could not necessarily relate to this content, but it was critical for them to be able to do so. So we had to find the right solution to meet these needs and to overcome these challenges. So I'm going to play a little bit of a mashup of our solution. And what you'll see that we've done here is that we needed to take an out-of-the-box approach. Our standard development tools would not deliver the solution that would be required to overcome the challenges that we were facing with this content. And what you'll see in this video of our solution is that we created animated videos that were engaging and effectively illustrated more complex concepts. We moved away from a traditional approach to corporate video and animations and adopted a more graphic novel approach. And we were able to do this by bringing on board a Conduent creative director who actually pitched these video concepts to the client as opportunities to get feedback on a new approach to, again, a more complex set of concepts that were being delivered. And as a part of this, we developed a series of 4 short videos that moved us to about 15 minutes of content to cover these concepts. Our results. we eliminated the need for in-person presentations at each onboarding session for this content. We also reduced our training footprint from an hour to 15 minutes. In addition, we were making this content understandable to a diverse, non-technical audience for the first time. So, when we look at our case studies, our hope was to provide some information that would give a snapshot into the partnership between Delta Air Lines and Conduent, and how that partnership focused on innovation and understanding that innovation could be low-tech or high-tech to have impact, and that our approach in assessing performance requirements meant allowed us to unpack requirements in a way that not only looked at learners' needs, but also the delivery requirements and accessibility of the content. And finally, we looked at the value proposition for analyzing our technology capabilities and limitations to land on the best solution to meet the learner's needs. Thank you for your time today.